going on, everybody? Anthony here, back again with another video. Today we're going to be working on a GX31. I believe this is an edger. I can't remember if it's a trimmer or an edger, but we're going to be doing some service and replacing the carburetor on this thing. This thing has been sitting for a very long time. Looks like it was used for a little bit and then put away for a few years. So we're going to be putting a fuel line kit, replacing the carburetor, replacing the fuel filter and the air filter, all the goodies, you know. Right now we're just taking out the fuel line kit there, as you can see. In a second I'll show you how hard these fuel lines are and how brittle they are. And they're kind of hard to come off the carburetor. I didn't really have to take them off the carb. I could have pulled off the whole assembly since I'm taking them off anyways, but this is just how my brain works, I guess. But yeah, so taking off both the fuel lines there and prying them off as best as I can. Okay, so now we're just kind of working everything off. I take the throttle cable off here. You kind of loosen up on these nuts here, and you can adjust these nuts, and these are good to adjust where you want, or adjust the slack out of the throttle cable. When it gets stretched, you can adjust these nuts, and it'll kind of put some tension on that cable, but you don't want it to be like the idle for it. So as you can see, the carburetor, everything is just, the diaphragms, everything were pretty hard. And sometimes I'll take these things apart and diagnose them and then put them back together just so I can show you guys. But as you can see, look at this fuel line, watch. It's supposed to be rubbery, not plastic. So we took the carb off, now we're taking the tank off. The tank literally broke off, the fuel filter and the fuel line broke off inside the tank. So I'm gonna dump that out, try to get that out of there. And there you have it, there's the fuel filter, the piece that broke off. And I'm just kind of rushing through things, trying to get situated here. And we're gonna open everything up, all the plastics in there, or I'll open up all the plastic packaging. And I'm using all OEM parts for this. Normally fuel line, we buy it in bulk, and I didn't feel like going to the parts room and cut my pieces and all that, so I just ordered all the pieces. And it's all, Honda parts are actually very cheap, but Honda stopped producing lawn equipment. They're only doing like construction equipment now, so, and engines. So keep that in mind, when you're buying a Honda, if there are any left, it'll probably be the last one. So right here I'm just kind of building the fuel line kit. I'm building all the putting the grommet in, the fuel lines, the fuel filter. I call it a kit because a lot of like Echo and Steel, they kind of sell their hoses and everything in a kit. Steel, it's all one piece on most of their residential stuff, but their commercial stuff, it's individual lines. But we just kind of built that out, slide the new kit into place, and this takes some practice on installing these, but once you've done it a few times, you get the hang of it. And I'll give you all a little close-up here on what it looks like when you do that, so, or when you install this grommet. So here I am using a screwdriver. You want to use like not anything sharp. You don't want to cut the grommet. So I usually use a thicker screwdriver, but this was next to me, so I just used this instead. But as you can see, it just pops right in there, and it needs to be very tight. So because if not, you're gonna have fuel leaking out. So I usually leave the fuel lines kind of long here, and then I'll adjust them, when they're on the carburetor and everything. So Honda uses these hose clamps, which are kind of annoying. I should have put it on after, but also, when you put a new carburetor, make sure you transfer that O-ring that you saw me just put on. Transfer that from your old carburetor, because the new ones don't come with it. Don't ask me why. So I just put on the throttle cable. It can only go one way into that slot. where the anchor is, so keep that in mind when you're installing the throttle cable. Sorry, it's kind of off frame here, because I'm actually, to this whole video, I'm actually talking to my employees. So as y'all know, I'm the shop manager here, and I just, I'm always talking to employees and stuff, and or my other techs here, and yeah. So open up these two nuts here, and you can adjust your throttle cable accordingly. As you can see, I'll hit the trigger, and you want it to be kind of instant when you squeeze the trigger. You don't want any slack in that throttle cable, so you'll see me feel it. And as you can see, the anchor is kind of sticking out on the end, on the carburetor end. If you I don't know if you saw that or if you caught that. And you don't want that anchor to be sticking out too far, because it won't be as responsive. So now that anchor is sitting inside of that, and you don't want it to also be too tight, because then it won't idle, so the idle stop screw won't work. So then you're constantly stretching the cable. Rather it be resting against the stop screw, it's now going to be, resting against the tension of the cable. So all that is there is just to help with adjusting the cables when they get stretched out. So here I am, I'm kind of adjusting the fuel lines here. I'm pushing, so how I do this is to know which one's the intake and the outlet is, or the exhaust, if you will. If you prime it, the air will come out of one of the tubes out of the carburetor, and the air that comes out is always your return line. So that's how you know. So I'll plug one, prime it, and then it'll be hard to push in, and that's how I know that's the return line, which is the clear line. So we're putting the intake line on now, or the fuel inlet, and then the outlet or the exhausting side will be the other one. They're kind of the intake line there, the inlet line, it's very how do you say it, rubbery line, so it's kind of tricky to get on. The clear one, the return line, is more of a plasticky, it's a lot easier to mess with. But so now I'm just trying to put this hose clamp back on there, nothing to it. Slide that bad boy up, and these are a little trick here. You grab and twist on the fuel line, or on the fuel line clamp, and it'll open up for you so you can slide it into place. So this is the same style of clamp that Honda uses on all their equipment, so almost all their equipment. I'd say 95%. I don't know why they use it, but that's what they use. So steel doesn't even use any clamps. They rely on just the fuel filter being super tight. So slide the return line on there, and then it has a little too much slack. I could trim some off, but I'm just going to push it right into the tank because it was already pretty short anyways. So I went ahead and shoved it right in there. Now we're going to throw the air filter housing on. Pretty easy. Don't forget that little metal plate. One thing I don't like about these is that the screws that go on to hold the whole assembly on will slide in. So you could kind of use a magnet to pull the screws back out, and then you kind of hand thread the nuts on first, and then crank them down. I'm not sure how old this machine is, but it definitely is an older Honda. And as you can see, it's in crazy good shape. It's just sat for years. So it's got the old style boxy, shut off switch, as you can see on the control. The control's real boxy looking. So I don't know how old it is, but it's older. We're gonna put a new air filter on it. I could use the old one, but the thing about Honda foam filters is they will deteriorate. So or foam filters in general they'll literally crumble to pieces. So I just replace them. It's very, very cheap, very easy to do. And that's pretty much it. We're going to shove that fuel filter all the way in there, and then throw some gas in it, and she's ready to roll. But that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.